The Fishin' Magazine television series is brought to you by Ranger Boats, where they still build them one at a time, so you can fish hard, run strong, and rest easy. Bass Pro Shops, where you get more outdoors for your money. ADM Alliance Nutrition, committed to excellence in animal nutrition. Lunker Lure and Hog Collar, quality builds confidence, and confidence catches fish. Motor Guide Trolling Motors, take on the world. Pinpoint Electronics, find fish where you never knew they existed. And Central Pro-Am Association, the leader in Pro-Am bass tournaments.
Last of the famed White River Lakes to be impounded, Beaver Lake owns a storied place in bass tournament lore. It was the site of the first modern bass tournament in 1967, and it's been a frequent stop on the Central Pro-Am Tournament Tour for over a decade. This year, more than 220 of Mid-America's best anglers from 9 states have journeyed to Beaver the first weekend in April for the second stop on Central Pro-Am's 2002 Tournament Trail. In the early years, it took nearly 30 pounds to win Central Pro-Am tournaments at Beaver. But since the mid-90s, the winner has never exceeded 26 pounds, and the tournaments have always gone right down to the wire. This year, Beaver Lake is nearly 7 feet high, and the water is way up in the buckbrush. But a cold winter and a series of fronts have made the Beaver Lake bass hard to pattern. Just ask Randy Morris, one of the pre-tournament favorites.
The lake conditions has changed quite a bit here in the last 3 months. Water's come up approximately about 10 feet. And of course it's cold, and the water temperature's bouncing back and forth between 48 and 55 degrees. And I just kind of went looking around today for food that they feed on this time of the year, balls of shad. And my main bait will be something in the matter of a suspended crankbait or suspended jerkbait, something I can get down deep and fish real slow.
With a front forecast to move through the area Saturday night, conditions are likely to change dramatically during the tournament. But one angler who remains confident regardless of the weather is Lynn Sykes.
I'm counting on at least 12 pounds a day. Right now, I've got 4 spots right now that I can go to and catch a limit so fast. I mean, I can have 5 within 5 casts. The fish that I found that are really conjugated, the weather's not going to affect them any way at all. I mean, whether it rains, the wind's out of the north, I could care less what the weather does, because they're not going anywhere.
The morning of day 1 is clear and cold with scarcely a hint of wind, which comes as a welcome relief to the Pro-Am anglers. A month earlier, the first tournament of the year had been shortened to 1 day because of sub-freezing temperatures and gale force winds at Lake of the Ozarks. As a result, today's conditions seem downright balmy to the Pro-Am anglers. Lynn Sykes heads straight to his best spot, and immediately it begins to pay off. In practice, Sykes located bass on a series of secondary points. He got them to hit on a spinnerbait, but his best fish came on a red and orange deep-diving crankbait, so he's sticking with it this morning. In 2001, Sykes finished the year as the Pro Division Rookie of the Year. This year, he's intent on improving his showing, and if he can keep this up, the odds look very much in his favor. In contrast to Sykes, who's concentrating on shallow stained water patterns, Tim Taylor is fishing deep in the clearest water he can find. He's fishing shad-colored grubs on 4-pound line, bouncing the lure along the bottom in 20 to 25 feet of water. Taylor is also a former Pro Division Rookie of the Year and ranks as one of Central Pro-Am's best at fishing a grub in deep water. Taylor's finished high in the money on a number of occasions, but he's never managed to win a Central Pro-Am event. This morning, however, he already has his limit, and if he can catch more like this one, he could be in position to make his first trip to the Central Pro-Am Winners Circle. Although you'd never guess it from his unassuming nature, Danny Pierce holds a unique place in Central Pro-Am history. You see, fishing from the back of the boat as an amateur, Pierce once caught 23.95 pounds of bass in 1 day. That total still stands as the amateur division record, but a lot has changed since then. Pierce now fishes in the Pro Division, and today he'd love to have just half that record-setting catch in his live well. So far, Pierce has 4 small keepers fishing a finesse worm in over 30 feet of water. Finally, he lands his 5th fish, and as tough as fishing has been, it could put him among the Day 1 leaders. Kendall Trainer is another of Central Pro-Am's rising young stars, and he's especially tough in early season tournaments in clear water. This morning, he's working a deep diving jerkbait near boat docks on steeply sloping banks. He now has his limit, but most of his bass are small Kentuckies, and he knows he'll need to find bigger fish than these to have a chance of winning. When the Pro-Am anglers return to Prairie Creek Marina for the Day 1 weigh-in, Mike Purse takes the early amateur division lead with 3 bass that total 5.8 pounds. Sutton Berry comes in with this solid 4.5 pounder, but it's his only keeper, and he falls short of taking the lead. Then comes Walt Craig.
Hey, how many bass do you have for me?
Got 5.
5 fish. How'd you catch those 5 fish?
Right in the mouth. I'd rather wait and talk about it tomorrow.
You know, you could make a lot of friends if you'd let them know today how you caught those 5 bass.
I've got a good friend, Bill Reed, right now.
You got more friends than a guy needs. 5 bass. Any good ones in there?
A couple of decent ones, nothing real big.
Couple decent ones. Currently leading the amateur division right now, 5.60 pounds. Goodbye. 5 bass for the amateur division, 8.70 pounds. A new leader in the amateur division.
When the 3rd flight arrives, Alfred Chapman takes a run at the lead, but falls short with 6.95 pounds. A short time later, he's followed by Ken Schulte.
Listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Currently leading the amateur division, 8.70 pounds. This young man doesn't have a limit, but he's got 4 bass that weigh 9.65 pounds.
In the pro division, one of the first to weigh in is Danny Pierce.
I got 5, but they're small limit.
How long did it take you to catch your limit?
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. And how were you catching your fish?
Real deep finesse worm.
Deep finesse worm. And were you spraying that finesse worm with anything?
Yeah, I was dipping it in and make them bite.
Dipping him and make him bite. And apparently it made him bite, because he's got a limit here, our first limit of the day, 7.05 pounds. You're the leader right now in the pro division.
A short time later, it's Buster Loving.
Do you have the limit?
Yeah.
How soon did you have your limit today?
It took me till about noon.
Took you till noon. And how many fish did you catch over your limit?
2.
So 7 total keeper bites today. Nice sack of fish here. New leader right here in the pro division, ladies and gentlemen, 11.45 pounds.
When the 2nd flight arrives, Cecil Kingsley moves into contention with a limit that weighs 9.05 pounds. So does Bill Reed, who comes in with a limit that weighs 10.45 pounds. When the 3rd flight arrives, Jason Lloyd leaps into the thick of the race with 10.4 pounds. But they all have to move aside when Len Sykes comes in with a 5-fish limit that gives him the lead with 12.1 pounds. Then Tim Taylor comes in with his big fish that tips the scales at 4.5 pounds.
You got the limit. Will they weigh 12.5 pounds?
I don't think so. Probably just a little shy.
How are you catching your fish?
Deep.
What kind of bait?
We'll talk about that tomorrow.
Did you catch that big one deep?
Yes, I did.
On that same bait that we're going to talk about tomorrow?
I hope.
5 bass. Nice sack of fish, Timmy. 11.95 pounds.
Finally, Eric Holt comes to the scales with a magnificent Beaver Lake largemouth that weighs 5.1 pounds.
Well, I was going to try to catch a limit of Kentuckies early this morning. I'd really been struggling in practice, and I was just fishing for little old Kentuckies, and that thing jumped on it. And I planned on trying to catch a limit going fishing for fish like that, but it didn't work out today.
Well, it worked out pretty good, it looks to me. New leader in the pro division, 12.70 pounds.
At the end of the first day, Eric Holt sits atop the Lunker Lure Pro-Am scoreboard with 12.7 pounds. But he has a lead of less than a pound over Lynn Sykes and Tim Taylor. Buster Loving is right on their heels in 4th place with 11.45 pounds, while Bill Reed completes the top 5 with 10.45 pounds. In the rest of the top 10, Jason Lloyd leads the way in 6th place with Scott Boaz, Roger Dial, Cecil Kingsley, and Joe Schilling close behind. In the amateur division, Ken Schulte is the first day leader with 9.65 pounds, giving him a lead of less than a pound over Walt Craig. Alfred Chapman holds down 3rd place with 6.95 pounds, with Gene Lineberry and Mike Purse rounding out the top 5. In the rest of the top 10, it's tight all the way as barely over a pound separates Robert Heath in 6th place from Scott Dennis in 10th. Stay tuned for exciting Day 2 action. We'll be right back. Fishing My Way. Helpful hints from some of Central Pro-Am's top competitors. The last time Central Pro-Am fished Beaver Lake, Toby Hartzell came through with a narrow victory by fishing small jigs around boat docks. And he did it fishing his way.
I was raised throwing a spinnerbait. My dad always taught me to throw a spinnerbait, and them days are done and gone. There's so many people out here fishing now. I just feel like that if I present something slower, more methodical, more continuous, that I feel like if I stay fishing, keep working the bait slow, that in a day's time a person can get some bites on a jig. It's pretty much a go-to bait for me when everything else fails. That's what I'll have on. It don't matter if it's clear water, dirty water, or whatever. That's what I'll have on. I flip my jig probably in heavier cover than most people does. I take chances with it. I don't care if I lose one, and it happens quite often. But I do. I flip my jig probably in heavier stuff than the average person, and I will fish shallower than most people will too, flipping the jig clear or dirty water. If a person's got some shade, don't be afraid to flip a jig, because they can very well be right there and you never know.
On the morning of Day 2, Pro-Am anglers are greeted by the front they'd been expecting for 2 days. The bright, balmy conditions of Day 1 are only a memory, and the dark, overcast skies carry the prospect of even worse weather as the day progresses. Lynn Sykes thought he was prepared for almost anything, but these conditions are tougher than anything he anticipated. His best spot lays open to the howling north wind, and catching fish there today is going to be a challenge with a capital C. Still, Sykes and amateur partner Lyle Vail know what they have to do and go straight to work. With windier conditions, Sykes switches from his red and orange crankbait to a Fire Tiger 9A Bomber, a lure Pradco no longer produces. It doesn't take long for the lure to work its magic, and in only a few minutes, Sykes already has a good start on his limit. Unfortunately, the day is not starting as well for first day leader Eric Holt. He caught his Day 1 limit fishing jigs and finesse baits in the mid-lake area, and he starts the day in the same place. But today, Holt's bass are simply not active. Heading into the tournament, Holt had not been confident he'd found enough fish to win. When he caught the 5-pounder early on Day 1, he thought good fortune might be ready to smile on him. But now that seems like an illusion. And unless things change quickly, Holt seems to be in for a long day indeed. Bill Reed is also experiencing a tough day. After Day 1, he was in 5th place, only 2.5 pounds out of the lead. In contrast to the other leaders, Reed caught his Day 1 limit on a Carolina rig. He's sticking with it again today, but the results are hardly spectacular. He's catching a few fish, but they're all much too small to keep. And unless things change quickly, Reed's chances for victory are diminishing rapidly. Meanwhile, near Beaver Dam, Buster Loving is making his move. Loving was in 4th place after Day 1 with a limit that weighed 11.45 pounds. The full-time Table Rock guide likes to fish in clear water, so he's gone to the clearest water he can find, and he's working a 4-inch smoke-colored grub on 4-pound line along flats with scattered brush. On Day 1, he caught his fish in 12 to 20 feet of water, but the overcast skies today have moved the fish shallower. Like the other leaders, Loving isn't getting a lot of strikes, but he's making the most of the ones he is getting. Tim Taylor started the day in 3rd place with nearly 12 pounds, but more than a third of that total came from one big fish. That means his other 4 Day 1 keepers average less than 2 pounds apiece. Today, Taylor is right on track to catch another limit, but so far, all his bass are of the 2-pound variety. Now, make no mistake, Taylor is glad to have them, but he'd sure like to have another 4-pounder to anchor his second-day catch. As the morning wears on, Lynn Sykes keeps persevering. Strikes are not coming as often as they did on Day 1, and Sykes is changing lures and water depth routinely, trying to figure out where his fish have gone. Slowly but surely, Sykes keeps grinding his way toward a limit. And if he can do it, he'll be putting himself in position to win his first Central Pro-Am title But one thing is certain, this tournament is going right down to the wire. When the Pro-Am anglers return to Prairie Creek for the final weigh-in, Kenny Keeter comes in with 4 solid bass. But his 2-day total of 9.5 pounds falls just short of taking the lead. Then comes first day leader, Ken Schulte.
Is it going to hold up here? 1.50 pounds. Let's get that total, Terry. I've got it. 11.15 pounds. Still the leader? Still the leader in the amateur division.
A short time later, Walt Craig comes to the scales.
This man was in second place in the amateur division yesterday from Derby, Kansas. Mr. Walter Craig caught the only limit yesterday in the tournament. He had 8.70 pounds yesterday. Let's see if he can make a run at the lead here. 2.50 pounds. Let's do the math, see where that puts you. First place, new leader. New leader right now in the amateur division, Walter Craig. Put your hands together for him, ladies and gentlemen.
In the pro division, Joe Schilling comes in with 3 good bass and jumps into the pro division lead with 15.65 pounds. Then, Lynn Sykes comes to the scales.
Here's a man that's going to try to take a run at the lead. How many you got today, Lynn?
I got 5.
5 fish. You had a good one yesterday. You got any good ones today?
I got one about 2.5 inches.
That's what you need in these tournaments where we're able to measure 12-inch fish on the Kentucky side. Boy, this is a good sack of fish. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a new leader here. 11.35 pounds. Here it is, the mark that everybody needs to shoot for. Mr. Lynn Sykes, 23.45 pounds.
When the second flight arrives, Tim Taylor makes his bid for the lead.
Timmy, you got 5 for us today?
I do.
Got any good ones in there?
I got 2 nice smallmouth, but I couldn't get that good black bite this morning that I did yesterday. So the wind really hurt me, but I'm tickled to death to catch what I caught.
Nice sack of fish right here, ladies and gentlemen. 11.95 yesterday, 5 bass today, 9.50 pounds.
Next is first day leader Eric Holt.
He had 5 bass yesterday and the big bass. 5 fish weighed 1270. Today he's got, you wanted me to call it for weather. Is there any particular reason why?
You see why now. I just, yesterday I way outfished the potential of my fish, and today this is what the potential of my fish was according to my practice. So I needed to make some kind of an adjustment, couldn't figure it out, and there you have it.
Tough luck there for you. 2.55 pounds on the 1 bass, Eric.
Finally, it's all up to Buster Loving.
You need 12 pounds even. 12 pounds even to take the lead, Buster. You got it?
It's going to be real close.
Maybe we'll have an overtime fish off. How would you do that?
No, I'm ready to go home.
So, oh my, look at this. Get ready, ladies and gentlemen. It's 12.60 pounds.
It's official now. Buster Loving claims his first Central Pro-Am title with a 2-day total of 24.05 pounds, outdistancing Lynn Sykes by a mere 8 ounces. Tim Taylor earns his best Central Pro-Am finish ever, coming in third with 21.45 pounds, while Bill Reed and Jason Lloyd round out the top 5. In the rest of the top 10, Roger Dial finishes in 6th place with 16.35 pounds, followed by Joe Schilling, Troy Akins, Cecil Kingsley, and Eric Holt. In the amateur division, Walt Craig wins his 2nd straight Pro-Am title with 11.2 pounds, edging runner-up Ken Schulte by less than 1 ounce. Kenny Keeter ends up in 3rd place with 9.5 pounds, followed by Robert Heath and Alfred Chapman in 4th and 5th, respectively. In the rest of the top 10, Hank Goodman leads the way in 6th place, followed by Randy McKinney, Mike Neal, Mike Purse, and Gene Lineberry. Stay tuned for tournament winning tips from Buster Loving. We'll be right back. Catch more fish. Brought to you by Ranger Boats, where they still build them one at a time.
I was really upset when I saw the lake with it being so muddy. I'm not a dirty water fisherman, and I did come down here and practice a little bit with very little success. I went over by the dam on Thursday, and I dropped down to my light line. I was using 4-pound line, fishing with a 3/16 ounce head and a little smoked 3.5-inch swimming minnow. I was fishing on a lot of gravel, pre-spawn stuff for smallmouth and Kentuckies, and I was keeping my boat in about 25 foot of water, and it was real calm that day, and I got to seeing fish. I could actually look down in the water and see the fish down there about 15, 18 foot swimming around. So I knew there was a lot of fish in these areas I was fishing. I just had to figure out how to catch them, and that little minnow was what was working. I could switch off of 4-pound line and move up to 6 or 8, and I could get very few bites. I'd go right back to that 4, and I'd immediately start getting bit. I think that was the whole key to me winning this tournament, was using that 4-pound line and that real small. It's actually a crappie bait is what it is. It's not really something guys use for bass too often. We use it. I use it at home when I'm guiding for white bass and crappie. And the fish were real sluggish, not real overactive, and they weren't really wanting anything moving fast. So I was putting it out there and letting it hit the bottom and just reeling as slow as I possibly could, trying to keep it just about a foot off the bottom. And I had about 8 areas I was fishing, and about all of them produced for me. Yesterday it was almost all spotted bass. Today it was almost all brownies.
Join us next week as the Fishin' Magazine television series takes you to beautiful Bull Shoals Lake for the Forest Elwood Buddy Bass Tournament. We'll see you then.
The Fishin' Magazine television series is brought to you